looking to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles. You're watching ASEAN in Focus on today's headlines. Senator Dan Sullivan, a respected and influential voice in the U.S. Senate, has issued a grave warning raising concerns about the potential fallout from China's hypothetical invasion of Taiwan on global democracy. In a highly anticipated address to the nation, Russian President Vladimir Putin made strong accusations against its Western allies, claiming that their intentions were to sow discord and instigate violence among the Russian people. In a dramatic display to mark International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Drug Trafficking, Myanmar junta authorities set fire to nearly $446 million worth of illegal drugs in Yangon and other locations across the country. The head of the Drugs Committee admitted that despite numerous arrests and prosecutions, the production and trafficking of drugs have not decreased at all. And Chinese Li Chang slams efforts in the West to de-risk their economies as a false proposition hitting back against U.S. and EU policy aimed at reducing their reliance on China. This week's meeting of the World Economic Forum in the port city of Tianjin, known colloquially as the Summer Davos, is the first of its kind after a 3-year hiatus caused by the COVID pandemic. Senator Dan Sullivan, a respected and influential voice in the U.S. Senate, has issued a grave warning raising concerns about the potential fallout from China's hypothetical invasion of Taiwan and global democracy. Addressing a gathering at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C., Senator Sullivan, hailing from Alaska, discussed the critical implications of China's military preparations for a potential confrontation within Taiwan. As a member of the influential Senate Arms Committee, Sullivan shed light on the alarming developments. Take a look.
All right, if we don't want a conflict, and we're not going to launch one, the United States isn't, Taiwan is going to launch one, it will be launched by Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. I have a slide there of Xi Jinping and his new members of the elected after the National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party in November. These elderly gentlemen in their fatigues. There's a seriousness here. They put that picture out almost immediately after this last Congress, and it is a photo taken to show China and the rest of the world these guys are preparing for war.
Highlighting measures to deter China, Senator Sullivan proposed that the U.S. could play a significant role by offering training and supplies to bolster Taiwan's army. He further suggested that military intervention should be considered if China were to strike and emphasized the imposition of strict sanctions against China in the event of an attack on Taiwan. Take a look.
The first is the level of helping Taiwan defend itself. That is actually in the Taiwan Relations Act. That shouldn't be new to anybody. But we need to do much more in terms of that, in terms of training, in terms of asymmetrical weapon systems that they need, and the ability to use, as you know, some people call it the porcupine strategy, to make Taiwan look like what's happening over in Ukraine. I mean, the will of the brave people of Ukraine, I think, is a deterrent to almost any dictator around the world. The second level of deterrence has historically been the most decisive, which is, now we've had at least 3 major Taiwan crises over the last several decades, and it's the deterrence factor of the United States and hopefully our allies coming to the assistance of Taiwan if there's a war launched by the CCP. Will we do that? That's always in question, but that's been a decisive level of deterrence historically. But the third level is the level of economic, financial, energy sanctions that I believe we should tee up now to make it clear to the Chinese Communist Party, if you invade militarily to crush this island democracy, the triggering factor of your military invasion will result in massive, comprehensive economic, financial, and energy sanctions.
Furthermore, Senator Sullivan also underscored the significant consequences that the U.S. and the rest of the world would face if China were successful in its invasion of Taiwan. He outlined 4 major repercussions that should be of paramount concern to the international community. Take a look.
First, this would be a devastating blow to the U.S. and global economy. The high-end chip fabrication that takes place on Taiwan is, we all know, enormous. The island democracy is home to 92% of the world's most advanced semiconductor production. And these very sophisticated computer chips not only going into the global economy, but going into American defense production, F-35s, radars, missile defense. There would be a huge geostrategic loss in a vital area of the world. On the first island chain, the second island chain, that's been at very important strategic lines within the American security apparatus since the end of World War II. And as you know, in the second island chain, you have residents in Guam, Mariana Islands. These are all U.S. citizens, right? These are all U.S. citizens that would be put to risk. A third, as I mentioned on page 14, is, I think, our commitment to our allies and credibility to our allies in the region would be strongly questioned. We have treaty alliances with many countries in the region, significantly, which would hurt and undermine all of our national security interests in the region. A successful military invasion of Taiwan by the PLA and CCP would be a huge boost to Xi Jinping's authoritarian model around the world.
In response to mounting concerns, Senator Sullivan introduced a consequential piece of legislation aptly named the Stand with Taiwan Act. This legislation seeks to solidify the U.S.'s support for Taiwan in this crucial juncture.
That's why I've introduced the Stand with Taiwan Act in the Senate. On the House side, Congressman Gallagher is the sponsor of this. We've been working on this legislation for quite some time. I've been pitching foreign governments, our allies around the world, on similar needs from their perspective to, again, have a trigger that says, here it is. If you militarily invade, this is what you should be expecting.
In a highly anticipated address to the nation, Russian President Vladimir Putin made strong accusations against Ukraine and its Western allies, claiming that their intentions were to sow discord and instigate violence among the Russian people. President Putin emphasized his commitment to preventing bloodshed and maintaining order, revealing that he had personally issued orders to avoid any unnecessary violence during the crisis.
Поэтому с самого начала событий по моему прямому поручению предпринимались шаги, чтобы избежать большой крови. Для этого потребовалось и время. В том числе, чтобы дать возможность одуматься тем, кто совершил ошибку. Понять, что их действия решительно отвергаются обществом и каким трагическим, разрушительным последствиям для России, для нашего государства ведет авантюра, в которую их втравили. Именно такого исхода братоубийства хотели враги России и неонацисты в Киеве, и их западные покровители, и разного рода национал-предатели. Хотели, чтобы солдаты России убивали друг друга, чтобы погибли военнослужащие и мирные жители, чтобы в конечном счете проиграла Россия, а наше общество раскололось захлебнулась в кровавой междоусобице.
Now, during his address, Russian President Vladimir Putin extended a choice to the Wagner fighters, granting them the opportunity to make a decision that aligns with their personal preferences. He said today we have the possibility to continue serving Russia by entering into a contract with the Ministry of Defense or other law enforcement agencies, or to return to your family and loved ones. Whoever wants to can go to Belarus. In response to the aborted mutiny led by the Wagner Group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of the organization, defended their actions as an effort to safeguard their mercenary outfit and shed light on the deficiencies within Russia's military leadership. However, he clarified that their intention wasn't to challenge the Kremlin. In a strong rebuke to U.S. and EU policies aimed at reducing their dependence on China, Chinese Premier Li Qiang delivered a scathing critique of Western efforts to de-risk their economies. Premier Li labeled this approach a false proposition during his address, amid recent moves by the U.S. and the European Union to disentangle themselves from the world's second-largest economy. Premier Li expressed his disagreement. He criticized the concepts of cutting reliance and de-risking as misguided, arguing that economic globalization has interconnected nations and their economies.
Some in the West are hyping up the so-called phraseologies of reducing dependencies and de-risking. These two concepts, I would say, are false propositions. As economic globalization has already made the world economy an integral whole where everyone's interests are closely entwined. Countries are interdependent, interconnected on each other, on their economies. We can enable each other's success. This is something good rather than something bad. If there is risk in a certain industry, it is not the call or decision by a particular organization or a single government.
While the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has described the EU's approach to China as de-risking rather than decoupling, the Chinese premier's comments underscore a fundamental difference in perspectives. President Joe Biden has maintained a firm stance on China, largely in line with his predecessor Donald Trump, and has even expanded certain restrictions, such as imposing a ban on high-end semiconductor exports to China. In a dramatic display to mark International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Drug Trafficking, Myanmar junta authorities set fire to nearly $446 million worth of illegal drugs in Yangon and other locations across the country. Take a look. The burning included heroin, cannabis, methamphetamine, and opium. But despite these efforts, Myanmar Central Committee for Drug Abuse Control admitted that the trade continues to flourish. The head of the committee, Soy Tut, acknowledged that despite numerous arrests and prosecutions, the production and trafficking of drugs haven't decreased at all. Myanmar's notorious Golden Triangle region, shared with Laos and Thailand, has long been a hub for illegal drug production and trafficking, particularly methamphetamine and opium.
Right now we're standing in Thailand, in the Golden Triangle, with Laos and Myanmar directly behind me on the banks of the Mekong. It's one of the biggest drug trafficking corridors in the world. So we have major production of heroin inside, opium and heroin inside Shan State, but also methamphetamine, synthetic drugs, which are spilling out across the region and feeding the whole of Asia Pacific, basically from Japan all the way down to New Zealand and everywhere in between.
Analysts point out that the military, which seized power in 2021, has been complicit in the trade, acting as a protective cartel for drug producers and traffickers. The UN recently reported record seizures of crystal meth in Myanmar.
The meth seizure totals 151 tons, which is about 20 tons less than 2021.
And opium poppy farming has experienced a resurgence amidst the chaos following the coup.
Once again, we were able to see the record low wholesale price of methamphetamines. And we've also witnessed the diversified meth tablet brands since the military takeover in February 2021 in Myanmar.
With more than 23 tons of crystal meth seized in Myanmar in 2022, the UN's Office on Drugs and Crime has raised concerns about the region's drug situation. In Bangkok, Thailand, a young man named Wacharapol Mahaprom, also known as Paan, has found solace and support in a program supported by the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. Paan, now 29 years old, began using crystal meth at the age of 21. However, thanks to the services provided by the UNODC-supported organization called ASEAN, he has been able to reduce the harm caused by drug use.
I hope I will die the last person in my family. That's what I think. I don't want to be gone first because the other will be sad.
ASEAN focuses on harm reduction services tailored to the individual needs of its clients, aiming to prevent the health and social impacts of drug use. Paan speaks highly of the clinic, describing it as a place where he can openly share his story and feel comfortable with the staff.
I feel like I'm talking with my mothers. I can tell them everything. I feel comfortable to tell all about my story. That I can rely on them, I can believe them.
ASEAN offers various services such as needle exchanges, HIV testing, and access to PrEP, a preventive medication for HIV transmission through sex or injecting drugs. However, despite the positive impact of ASEAN's work, the stigmatization and discrimination surrounding drug use in Thailand remain prevalent.
In Thailand, using drugs is illegal and also high stigmatized discrimination.
While ASEAN's activities are supported by the UNODC, a funding shortfall has forced the closure of many outreach services in other parts of Thailand. Nevertheless, the peer support provided by organizations like ASEAN is crucial in breaking down stigma and promoting positive change.
Organizations like ASEAN, which is peer-led, community-based, are really important because they help to break down that stigma. They are led by like-minded individuals, right? So people who have experience in using drugs, and they speak to their clients at the same level as the client. They don't speak down to them. They are peers in a sense. And with that, they can share information around harm reduction, around safer use practices that really get to the heart of the client. And that's where there's the potential to affect positive and meaningful change.
Now, this story comes at a significant time as the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Drug Trafficking, also known as World Drug Day, is observed on June 26 each year. This year's theme, People's First, Stop Stigma and Discrimination, Strengthen Prevention, aims to raise awareness about treating people who use drugs with respect and empathy. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.